Hello and welcome to a New Year's Day episode of Cooking with Cleavage. Today I'm going to make New Orleans style New Year's Day lunch, which is really going to be dinner tonight because I really just got started late. But I have everything prepped, and I usually do a pork roast. I got this huge shoulder, it's like this big at Costco, and just cut it up. So it was folded, so it's not a normal like roast that's together like I normally do. It's a shoulder, but I think it's gonna be fine. And I roast it. So what I did is I peeled a bunch of garlic, right? And I'm gonna make little slits in this and just stick the garlic in. That's what I'm gonna do. Just find little slits. Just make little slits and stick the garlic in. I think it wanted to slit maybe this way. It's really tough. But you're going to do all that until you have all of your garlic stuffed in there, okay? So I'm going to finish that up. I'll be right back. Okay, so now I used all the garlic. As you can see, I make little slits in the pork, and I put the garlic in there, and I try to just put it all around the roast. Then I took some olive oil and I just kind of coated it, and this is some Tony Chachere's and some salt. I'm just going to sprinkle that on the roast. Had to get a little inventive since I'm working with the pork, so I had to make sure it was kind of in a container so that I wouldn't be needing my pork hands. Okay, so then you just rub it all in. Oh, and you rub it all in, and you make sure all the garlic is in there. You might have to stick it back in. It looks like it's great though, huh? And then I have the oven preheated to 450. What you want to do is put it in at 450 for maybe like 15 minutes and then turn it down. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Open up and I'm just going to stick it. Should I put it on the bottom? Yeah. Okay. Get it just right in the middle on the bottom. And then, oh, I wanted to put the probe in it. See, my oven comes with this probe. So then you just want to, I guess, put it in the most middle part. Does that look like the fat is up? Yeah. I did turn it, didn't I? Mm-hmm. Well, that's very hot. So I'm gonna turn this down, timer. I'm gonna put 15 minutes, start. Yeah, so that's gonna count 15 minutes and then I'm gonna turn it down, okay? Okay, so this is black eyed peas. What I did is the night before last, I soaked the beans with, I just added a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of seasoning, Italian seasonings, and all kind of seasonings, bay leaf, parsley, and I soaked them overnight. And then yesterday, I did the rib tips. And I know I've done rib tips for y'all before when I made the lentil stew. So if you want to see how to do that, just go back to that video. So the black eyed peas, the pork roast, cabbage, which is part of this meal too, but I made smothered cabbage before on an episode too, so go back to find that because I'm not going to be showing y'all how to do it again. But you see how it's just the beans and the meat? So what I did is I just took it out of the fridge and I added some water, I got it to room temperature. Now I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to put it back on the stove and I'm going to turn it on. And you want to put it kind of medium high just so that it will come to a boil at first while you're cooking it. And what I'm going to do is turn this one on and start cooking my sausage. So I'm going to add sausage to it. You want to do this in layers, right? So the sausage, which is already smoked, you don't have to be as careful about, it's not raw, so you don't have to be as careful as you were with the pork roast about contaminating it anywhere, but still want to be a little bit careful. And then after all this gets, I guess I should have waited for the pot to cook to heat up, but at least we'll tell when the sausage starts sizzling. We'll know it's starting to cook. And then you want to do this in layers, and I'll show you as soon as this starts getting cooking. Okay, so now that you see a nice little brownish on the sausage, right? Then you can put that into the beans. Put it straight into the beans. My mom used to put her sausage in the oven, and that way she could like take off the grease. But you can also skim the top off the grease after you cook it so that the flavors all get in there if you're really not concerned about the grease being in there. I know some of you don't like the sound of that. My friend Rebecca is somebody I'm thinking about right now. The sound, you know. So then you take, this is 1 onion. I cut up about 4 pieces of celery and 1 green bell pepper. That's what we call the Holy Trinity in New Orleans. I'm going to use this. And then you just take about half of this because, actually if you mix it all up, because you need the other half after you cook the second half of the sausage. Right, because this is all water, high water content vegetables, and it's going to pull all the brown yumminess up from the sausage, because it's going to let water out when it cooks. And after that cooks a little bit, you can add some of this garlic. But you don't want to put the garlic alone in the pan because it'll burn more easily. I have garlic right here. I'm going to use half of this for this and half for the cabbage that I'm going to cook. That I said I'm not going to show you how to cook because you can go back to the episode showing smothered cabbage, and that's exactly what I'm going to make today. Okay, so now you see how the vegetables are getting a little glassy. So I would add some seasoning at this point, right? Because you want to season as you go. You also, after it cooks a little while, you taste it and see if you need any more seasoning. I'm going to put a little bit of this. This is Tony Chachere's. It's just a local seasoning. A little bit of salt. And remember, salt is kind of like sugar when you're making drinks. You can always add more, but you can't take it out. So just use it sparingly, and you can also add. So I have Italian seasoning here. I'm going to add some of that. I'm going to put, I have bay leaves when I soaked them, but I'm going to add a little small bay leaf. And I'm going to add some parsley. You can also use fresh parsley. I just forgot to get some at the store. Like I always say, when you use dried herbs, make sure you just rub it in your finger to kind of weaken it up. And then I'm going to put about that much garlic. I guess I don't need to put it in the next batch. Because I just used about half. Maybe a little bit more in the next batch. And that all kind of cooks down together. You can smell it. It smells so good. And you see how clean the bottom of the pan is? It got all that brown sausage yumminess up. So after it gets a little glassy and you notice it's really starting to cook, then you can add it to the pot. But I do want to let y'all know that after I cooked the pork for 15 minutes, I turned it down to 325. And I'm using for the first time my probe in here. So I set the probe, that's at 144 right now. I'm trying to get it up to 185, I think. I don't know, you hear different things online, but I read a pork shoulder roasting should be brought to 185. And it went up really fast when I had the temperature up to 450, but now it's climbing a little more slowly. See? And then you just add that to it. I'm going to keep the lid off for a little while. Maybe try to get some of this liquid up. And then I'm going to put the rest of the sausage down. It's not as big of a layer this time. Uh-oh. Oh, great. That's not good. The spoon is burning. You got that on camera? Okay. So you put the rest of the sausage in here, and that's not as much of a layer, but that's fine. Looks like there's some more yumminess from the vegetables that need to get pulled up actually. So you just let that cook until you start to see a little browning on it, and then we'll finish the vegetables. Okay, so now it's just gonna be, you know, I finished the second layer of vegetables. I seasoned that the same way, and I put it all in the pot. I stirred it up, and it's almost to the point, as you can see, it's starting to get hot enough to start to boil. So once it boils, you want to turn it down. Not too much. You still want to keep it on like a high simmer. Depending on, you can even cook it more slowly than that if you want, but I'm getting started pretty late. As you can tell, it's 7 o'clock at night, so I'm going to probably keep it on a medium simmer. And I might keep the top off for a little while, just because, excuse me, all the seasoning, it's got me sneezing. Just because you want it to kind of, you can cook the moisture out, and so it won't be as high, hopefully. I don't know. Cooked the pork roast to 185, and I took it out, and you're going to want to let it sit for like 20 minutes before you cut it, at least, maybe half an hour. That looks so good though, right? Okay, and then the beans, I've been letting it cook topless, like I said before, so that the moisture would come out of it. And you see, it's not quite as moist as it was. It's let a little bit of the juices out. And then I think at this point we can cover it. I like my black-eyed peas like to the point where it's almost melting in your mouth, so that takes a while. I'm just gonna let it keep cooking like that, and then I'll show you the whole plate when I've finished everything. Okay. Hi, welcome back. It's the next day after I cooked the pork roast and the black-eyed peas. What I did was I cooked the black-eyed peas for about at least 2.5 hours. You'll start to see it starts to thicken, it starts to get all soft together. It's delicious. And then I cooled that down and put it in the fridge. I haven't even had any yet. But this is the final, and I smothered the cabbage today. Like I said, you can go on to my smothered cabbage episode and see how I did that. But the last piece of this New Year's Day puzzle is cornbread. And a friend of mine gave me the suggestion of using rosemary or sage in the cornbread. And last year I did it, and it came out so buttery and good from the rosemary. A little bit spicy, you know, like rosemary is. And I thought I would try it with sage too this year, but my sage didn't make it this long. So I'm just using fresh rosemary from my garden. And the only other thing I have in here, because I'm using 2 packs instead of just 1 of cornmeal corn muffin mix. It's the Jiffy corn muffin mix. It calls for 1 egg per, so I just crack the eggs in there. So I have 2 eggs in there, stirring it in with the rosemary. And then milk. It's a 1/3 cup of milk for each pack, so I have 2/3 cup in here. And then you just add the cornmeal to it. And all you want to do is mix it. And it's going to be a little lumpy still after you're done. It even says that on the container. But you just want to make sure it's all together. You just want to make sure you get all that together. It's really easy to mix. And you want to make sure it's lumpy. And I already preheated the oven to 400. It's preheating right now. It's getting up there. And then what the directions on the pan, what the directions say is, you know, if you're gonna make muffins out of this, I usually just make it all together. But if you're gonna make muffins and you want the crown to be like a super crown, like brown and all deliciousness on top, what does it actually say? It says, for maximum crown on muffins, let batter rest for 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm gonna let the batter rest here for 3 or 4 minutes. And it says to also grease the pan. So it says to use an 8x8 for each. So I figure if I use something this big, it'll be probably a perfect amount. And I'm gonna use that, since I bought this a while back, I'm just gonna use this spray to grease it. You just wanna get a good coat on it. And then after 3 minutes, I'll be right back. Okay, so now that this has been resting for 3 or 4 minutes and the pan is all greased, you just want to put it in here. It might not be a big enough pan. I think I should do it in another pan. So I'm putting the cornmeal that rested 3 or 4 minutes, like I said, into the pan that has been greased. And it looks like it's short, but it's actually going to grow, right? It's like, it grows a little bit. But I don't know. I don't like super thick corn muffins anyway, or cornbread anyway. So now that you have it in the pan and the oven is at 400, I'll take these off so we can get them on the ground. My sister always tells me that. She's like, you open your oven and your napkins get on the ground. I don't know. I'm gonna put it on the bottom one. Ow. Okay. And you let that cook for 16 to 20 minutes. So what I'm gonna do is put the timer on 16 and start it. And then when that's done, I'm gonna check it like with a toothpick, like I did with the cake that time, to see if it's actually ready. All right, so this is the final New Year's Day lunch. Never a little bit a day late, but never too late. This is cabbage, the smothered cabbage. Like I said, you can find that on my previous episode of smothered cabbage. That stands for luck for the new year. That's black-eyed peas with rib tips and sausage, delicious over rice. And the black-eyed peas stand for health. That's pork roast stuffed with garlic, like I showed you how we did, and that's for happiness. And the cornbread, which I like to put a slit in and put a little bit of butter in there like that while it's warm. And that stands for wealth because it's gold. Interesting, huh? So that's what we eat in New Orleans. I'm going to try a little bit. Ooh, I'm going to try the beans first. Yum. Doesn't need a thing. The cabbage is so good. I'm going to take a little bite of cornbread. I'm going to get a piece. You see where, ooh, look how tender that is. You see that piece of garlic right there? I'm going to take that bite with garlic. It's roasts inside the pork. That is so good. I did not have any energy yesterday, which is why I didn't finish this meal, but I'm glad I actually did it because I'll really miss it if I don't have it every year. Anyway, I hope you learned something today. I hope you enjoyed yourself with me here today, or 2 days in a row, actually. And I hope y'all have a happy 2022.